All right. Well, hello and ni hao, everyone, and welcome to today's Sichuan 101 cooking class hosted in collaboration with 50 Hertz. So I'm so excited to have you here. And today we're going to be talking about my absolute favorite cuisine, which is Sichuan chun cai, or Sichuan food. I am all cards on the table Sichuanese. So this training is for those of you curious foodies who want to learn how to make authentic Sichuan style dishes at home. Even if your busy schedule typically discourages you from cooking at home, or maybe you have a partner or an older kid who doesn't really cook but really likes this food. So maybe this can also be kind of a stepping stone to get them to start making the foods they love at home. So you're probably also here because you want to learn how Sichuan food hits that sweet spot between fast, healthy, and delicious. And really, if I have done my job today, I can convince you it is a cuisine worthy of daily consumption. And part of what I'll be teaching is also what I teach my students in my larger cooking membership, which is really to make cooking a lifestyle, right? And not a one-time thing where, you do it once and then you're so tired that you don't do it again for another month. We really want to be able to build this routine that allows you to enjoy making your favorite foods at home. And if you're like me, I'm Chinese American, so I was born in Chengdu but grew up in the States. So maybe you're here because you want to start learning how to create those dishes that your mama, baba, maybe 爷爷奶奶, 婆婆公公, made for you growing up, and you would like to start returning the favor. Now, this class is not going to be for you if you don't like spicy food, right? Because we are going to be learning how to make my family's chili oil recipe and a chili oil-based sauce. Or if you don't like free content, follow that by a super valuable offer. So for the very end of class, I'll be talking a little bit more about the other Sichuan cooking classes that I offer as part of my Panda Cub Diner membership. So I do have a bonus gift for those of you who are action takers at the end of class out there. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but in summary, I will be opening my membership for lifetime enrollment at the end of class. And anyone who joins is also going to be shipped my print recipe cards, which I use all the time in my own kitchen. All right, so we are going to start class off with a little imaginary contest. So the winner of this contest is going to win access to their very own private chef for an entire year. And so this super fancy private chef, lays out the rules, and she says, hey, who wants access to me and my team and have these beautifully crafted and delicious meals delivered to you whenever you want, without having to do all the heavy lifting in the kitchen? And so the prize is going to go to the first beginner cook, right? So that might be you, that might be a partner, that might be one of your kids who are ready to go off to college soon. So the first beginner cook who makes their family a stellar home-cooked meal is going to win this. So there are two avatars that I like to sort of walk people through in terms of approaching this contest. So the first is Overwhelmed Kevin, right? So Kevin is a software engineer, and he usually has a fridge full of Soylent. But, he suddenly gets this desire to make a meal. So he, makes a to-do list, spends an hour combing through YouTube and websites, maybe gets a little distracted by a Reddit thread, and then finally gathers up his energy and goes to the grocery store, spends $100+, and by the time he gets home, he's so wiped that, he's like, hey, do you want to just get takeout to his partner? Or his partner's like, you know what, I'll cook again. I like cooking anyway. And Overwhelmed Kevin is overwhelmed. So the second avatar is I Got This Jen, who her family growing up was really careful and particular about exposing her to Chinese culture and Chinese cuisine, since Jen is an adoptee. And for her, this contest is kind of basically a breeze, right? So she has a younger sister who is the beginning cook that she is walking basically her through in this contest, and they're basically prepped for success because they have a pre-stocked pantry, a curated library of easy and go-to meals that is sure to wow. So here's the thing. We all have a little bit of Kevin and a little bit of Jen in us. So actually, Kevin and Jen are composites of some of my past students who have taken cooking classes with me. And so if we haven't met yet, hello and ni hao, I am Linda. And let me just quickly check that folks are not having any issues. Sorry, I will probably do this periodically. Oh, okay, let's see. Anonymous says, still no video or sound. All right, so please let me know if you can still hear me. Okay. Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, so back to the presentation. So ni hao and hello, I am Linda Yi. And for those of you who don't know me, I am the creator of Panda Cup Stories, which is the webcomic I started drawing to document my own efforts of relearning how to cook Sichuan food and reconnect with Chinese culture. So this over here is Panda. So I was super tired of feeling trapped in this vicious cycle of expensive takeout, unhealthy fast food, and cold cereal for dinner. So a little bit of background, I'm not a trained chef. I didn't go to culinary school. And growing up, I would always help my family cook, but I would never really be the person in charge of making meals. But this all kind of changed during COVID. So, like many people, I also have my own sort of COVID story, COVID project. And for me, I really got homesick and I longed for these delicious meals, healthy meals that I grew up eating, but never got around to making because I was either too drained to cook, didn't have the ingredients on hand, or I just hadn't done it in so long that I wasn't sure if I could do it anymore. And really, the change came when I actually, the homesickness and the time offered by COVID was really the thing that got me going, because logically I knew that eating a home cooked meal wouldn't get rid of all the anti-Asian sentiment that was brewing around me, but there was something that I really longed for and that I really started to talk and call and WeChat my parents about, and asking them to, hey, can you walk me through this dish that we made again? How do you make your mapo tofu? Was it like this? And this is really how the Panda Cup Diner system was born. So the Panda Cup Diner system and the recipes that I created for it is the topic of today's class. And so this is really the solution that I created when I streamlined my kitchen and life for my hometown cooking, which is Sichuanese. And these were also hometown recipes that were healthy enough for me to eat on the regular, and that also worked with my ADHD brain. So as I will be talking about as I go through the class today, being neurodivergent and learning to cook with ADHD is a really big part of how I structure my recipes and how I teach. So this is something that allowed me, who is my first beta student, to ditch the overwhelmed Kevin approach for good and really consistently cook healthy and authentic meals at home, even on days when I'm running a little bit low on both motivation and time. So if you also want to ditch overwhelmed Kev for the Gen mindset, which I am sure you are because you are here today, we're going to break it all down from here. So let's go. So the first item that I usually go over with my students is a little less how to cook and a little more the sort of ground level foundation behind Chinese cooking. And that starts with addressing a misconception that some people have, which is that Sichuan food or Chinese food in general is an indulgence, that it's too oily, salty, spicy, or unhealthy to eat on the regular. So this was something that really also came to the forefront of my attention. In about early 2020. So at that time, especially if you live in New York, you might remember this news article that was going around. A lot of different publications covered it, of this, sort of like hipster restaurateur in Brooklyn who advertised that she and her husband were going to open a clean Chinese restaurant, right? That doesn't make you feel all icky, that, you can have your cake and eat it too, but it would actually be healthy as opposed to unhealthy. So this is a comic that I wrote expressing how I felt about it.
I sell improved Chinese food, not that greasy, junky stuff. I call it #Clean Chinese.
Clean 你的头.
Panda, we should use our words, not our claws in times like this. And the perfect words for this situation's that.
In the West, all Chinese food is sometimes stereotyped as greasy, junk food. If we keep eating this, we're going to get fat. LOL. And to this, we say, nonsense.
All right. So that is basically the myth that we are going to dispel here and now. So Chinese food, as I'm sure we all know, is a very diverse cuisine. The westernized, more American style of Chinese food is of course delicious. I love my Panda Express. And if you have more time to nerd out with me later, we can also talk about the storied history of Americanized Chinese food, especially, starting from the gold rush. But to sort of save time, we're gonna jump to Sichuan food and talk a little bit about why it's also full of diversity. So, that misconception that Chinese food is, oily and salty is not unique to Western versus Eastern, right, misperception. So sometimes within China as well. I had a friend recently, so she is Chinese American like me, but her family is from Southern China. So for her, we grabbed food once and she said, I love Sichuanese, but it's way too spicy and salty for daily consumption. So using that as a starting off point, I am going to take us through a very small dive into the history of Sichuan cuisine before we actually start digging into those recipes. So here we go. There is an old saying that goes, 南甜北咸, 东辣西酸. I won't get into the weeds of exactly how accurate this is, but suffice to say that the tastes and traditions of Chinese cuisine are often influenced by geographic region. And what we call Sichuan food, or cai comes from the southwestern region of China, which is the Sichuan province and Chongqing municipality. So Sichuan and Chongqing. And for reference, size-wise, Sichuan and Chongqing are around the same size as California plus New York State squished together. So about 219,000 square miles each. Fun fact, Chongqing used to be part of Sichuan province and was Chengdu, my hometown's rival for Sichuan's top culinary capital. However, now that it is its own municipality, it is no longer part of Sichuan, so Chengdu wins. Which is to say, culinarily speaking, Sichuan and Chongqing are still one family. So when we think of Sichuan food, that is the food that comes from Sichuan and Chongqing. Diverse as it is, if I had to summarize Sichuanese cuisine into one word, that word would be mala or mala. If you came into this course with even a general understanding of Sichuanese cuisine, you'll probably already be familiar with mala. So mala is literally translated into numbing and spice, or numbing spice, and it's this mouth-watering blend of spicy, zingy, tingly, and mouth-numbing flavor that is unique to Sichuan cuisine. The ma in mala means numbing, and this numbing sensation comes from the huajiao plant. So huajiao is literally translated as flower pepper, but in the West, it's more commonly known as the Sichuan peppercorn or prickly ash. This fragrant spice is the thing that causes that pins and needles feeling that dances on your tongue and lips. Apart from making your lips tingle, the Sichuan peppercorn is also a symbol of fertility in China because the plant bears a lot of seeds. So if you ever get the chance to attend a wedding in Sichuan, particularly rural Sichuan, chances are that you will see the newlyweds showered with handfuls of peppercorn, Sichuan peppercorn, and peanuts. So this is very similar to the tradition of throwing rice on the couple in the West. So I guess no matter where you are, we love to scatter agricultural products to promote prosperity and fertility. No pressure, new couple. Now, the la part of ma means spicy or hot, and it also in slang usage means spicy or hot in terms of appearance. Anyway, this spice comes from the fiery red chilies that Sichuanese folk love to put in almost everything. And this actually has to do with where Sichuan is located. Sichuan is a beautiful province filled with majestic mountains and winding rivers, but it also happens to be very damp and chill in the winter and hot and muggy in the summers. In traditional Chinese medicine, damp and chill is a big no-no. And this is because it is thought that chilly dampness really disrupts the delicate yin-yang balance of the body and can sap your energy and make you sick. So while in the West, we may swear by an apple a day, keeping the doctor away, in Sichuan, it is thought that guzzling down flaming hot chilies to drive out the moisture and dispel the cold will help keep us healthy. And of course, that folk wisdom is around the same as apple day, keeps a doctor away. So yes, eat as many chilies as you want, but also take your medicine. And as for... All right. So, let me just check. Oh, thank you, Dorothy. I'm glad that you have the that you like the illustrations. All right, so that was a little dive into Sichuanese food history, and as just a plug, because I am a crazy cat lady, Mala is also the name of one of my kitty cats. All right, so let me bring that back up. All right, so in terms of Sichuan food, right, the mala, that spicy, kind of intense flavor, the ma, the tingly, right, is what Sichuan pepper 50 hertz specializes in. And then the la, the spicy part, is really kind of what makes Sichuan cuisine Sichuanese. But the thing is, not every single dish in Sichuan home cooking is really that intense. So when it comes to the Sichuan dinner table, it's all about harmony and balance. So for example, if we have some kind of heavily flavored dishes that really pack a punch, like the koltas chicken we are going to be learning next, then we usually balance that out with a lighter, more nuanced dish, like tomato and egg stir fry, which is actually brought over from Shanghai, or a light veggie dish. And of course, paired with plain rice to kind of cut some of that intensity. But of course, today we are doing a beginner Sichuan class, so we are going to focus on that flavor. So kind of going into the world of flavor, right? Another mistake that some new cooks make is thinking that they need to buy dozens of new spices and sauces and spend absolute hours and hours in order to achieve authentic flavor. And so this mindset kind of makes sense, right? Because we want to usually start making what we know. But the thing is, most of the most famous Sichuan dishes aren't exactly beginner friendly. So, like twice cooked pork, 回锅肉. If you want to really make it properly, you have to make the meat the day before, and then the actual process of doing it is going to take kind of long as well. Same with mapo tofu. If this is the first Sichuan dish that you attempt, it might get a little hot around the collar, especially if you're new in the kitchen. And dandan noodles, one of my favorite dishes. So many ingredients, not where I would start if we are a beginner. And then there's the actual gathering of ingredients, right? So you have a bit of a catch-22. Either your local grocery store has a very tiny international aisle and there isn't any Sichuan sauce, or there's a very shady Sichuan sauce. Or you go to an Asia Mart and if you have a lot of time, that's great. But if you just need to go in and out even I get sort of like brand fatigue. So the good news is that with Sichuanese cuisine, you can start simple. And all you really need is these core 8 ingredients to get started. And here I have recently updated my illustration to include the 50 Hertz Sichuan peppercorn oil. And really, it's with these 8 core ingredients that you can really start running with Sichuanese cuisine, because these 8 simple ingredients are combined in a variety of ways, again and again, for very diverse flavor profiles. But it's not going to break the bank, and it's not going to take up a ton of space in your pantry. Now, the 6 of the core 8 are pretty easily purchased at any Western grocery store. So for Chinese black vinegar, that might be a little harder to find. You can definitely find it online, but a good substitute is actually aged balsamic vinegar. So my parents have actually been just using balsamic vinegar lately because Costco had a really big sale, and they love Costco. But what we're going to do next is we are going to go over how to make homemade versions of chili oil and also Sichuan peppercorn powder to get us started with the 2 core ingredients that will go into our cold tossed chicken recipe. So for huajiao or huajiao mian, I know a lot of you probably already have the 50 Hertz Sichuan peppercorn oil, the green and the red version, both very delicious, and I have both. But to really get a sense of, where most Sichuanese kitchens start, we have to take a look at the actual huajiao, the flower pepper, and what came before the Sichuan peppercorn oil. Oh,
perfect. You've gathered all of your raw ingredients, and among them, the oh-so-numbing Sichuan peppercorn, huajiao. This tiny berry packs quite a punch and is a bit overwhelming to eat whole, which is why we are going to grind it into Sichuan peppercorn powder, or huajiao mian, huajiao mian, from being the finishing touch on a dish of mapo tofu to being the key player in my magic drizzle on anything Sichuan sauce. More on this later. Huajiao mian, or huajiao mian, is key. In this lesson, I'll take you step by step through the process of creating your own batch of huajiao mian, ready to use whenever you want. Before we begin, however, a note. So if you think you'll only per time you begin cooking.
Sorry about that, guys.
Note. So if you think you'll only be cooking Sichuan meals once in a while, so say 1 or 2 times a month, I would actually recommend skipping this lesson. So just go ahead and click complete, because you can probably do with simply grinding peppercorns as needed with a mortar and pestle each time you begin cooking. However, batch grinding is definitely the way to go if you'll be cooking Sichuan meals every week like me. So what you are going to do is, step 1, gather your peppercorn and lightly toast them in a dry wok or frying pan, making sure that the heat is turned on low. You're going to stir for a few minutes, and you'll see the peppercorns start to smoke very slightly, but take care not to burn them, because this will make it bitter. 2, blend, blend, blend. It's exactly what it sounds like. Dump it into a blender and have at it. I will let my ye demonstrate how. Step 3, funnel into an airtight bottle. Again, Yeye shows how. So for me, I like to use these tiny little glass bottles that I got off of Amazon, because I think they're very cute and also easy to give to friends. But you can use anything you have on hand, as my Hia does, for example. Back when he used to make it, he would just use like plastic water bottles or empty energy drink bottles. Lastly,
all right. So I am actually going to keep the display in this mode. Sorry, I know it's a little janky, but this way I can see your chat. I've given up trying to log in on a different device. So I saw that Dave B asked, I only have the green oil, will that work? Absolutely. So for Sichuan cooking, actually now I have pretty much substituted Sichuan peppercorn oil. So I toggle between the green and the red for Sichuan peppercorn powder. So I did want to show you kind of how it was originally done, because the powder is really what I grew up with. And I will say, however, that now in China, people are also kind of moving more towards using this refined oil, because it's a really nice shortcut and shorthand. And you can basically just, grab a bottle and go. All right, so the second part of our raw material that we're going to do is we are going to learn how to make homemade chili oil. So in a pinch, if you don't have time or don't have the desire to make it yourself, you can also substitute it with store-bought chili oil. So Lao Ganma is a really good kind of like classic. And then I also think Fly by Jing recently has been getting a lot of. So the thing I would say about this recipe that I'm about to share with you now is it's a lot more simple, and in a way it's a lot more pure. So the reason why, as you will see, my family uses the simple recipe is because our chili oil is part of, like more complex sauces, and we want to be able to control the flavor of the sauces that we are building with this chili oil. So if there's a bunch of other flavors mixed in, which some of the store-bought chili oils will have, then it muddies up the flavor a little bit down the line. So I'll go straight into the video.
This homemade chili oil. My family calls it suyu haijiao, but you can also call it hongyou or hongyou, red oil. Let's start. Step 1. Prep your tools and ingredients. So what you will need to make your homemade chili oil and store it properly is a container. Ceramic jars work best. Apart from the container, you are going to want your trusty wok, your ladle, some veggie oil, the chili flakes and chili powder, as well as sesame. So as for sesame, you can use toasted sesame or raw sesame. It doesn't matter really. Step 2, layer those ingredients into the ceramic jar that you prepped, or empty salsa bottle. I like to use a 1-to-1 fine chili powder to larger chili flake ratio. So I put the fine powder in first, and I shake it flat. And then I pour in the chili flakes and I shake it flat. And lastly, I put just enough sesame in it to cover the top layer. So make sure that your sesame is on top, and very important, do not mix at this stage, not quite yet, because when you add the hot oil, you want the sesame to toast and fry first, and it will make your home smell amazing and really open up the fragrance in the oil. Step 3, heat up the oil in your wok. So note that the oil shouldn't get so hot that it starts smoking or boiling, because this will burn the ingredients that we just layered into the jar. It should be just hot enough to sizzle your dry ingredients. So to test the oil temperature, start by tipping very small amounts of oil into your jar of dry ingredients. And when you start to see the top layer sesame sizzle, you are good to go. So turn off the heat at this point. Step 4, begin to ladle the hot oil into your chili oil jar, and take care not to splash or burn yourself. I definitely did this the first time I tried to make it back in high school, but it's fine. What didn't kill me made me tougher. So continue to mix the sediment as you add the oil so that all of it gets nice and toasted by the oil. Keep putting in oil, mixing, putting in oil, mixing, and keep going until your jar is about 3/4 full. There you have it, fragrant and homemade chili oil, and the sediment, which is just as good, and you would use some of that for extra spice in a dish, all at your fingertips.
All right. So since now I'm using this view, I hope everyone is okay with it. Thank you for bearing with me. But the good thing is I can see the chat now. So a few questions that I answered in the chat, but real quick, someone asked, what type of oil do you use? So really any oil with a high smoke point is good. I would, shy away from olive oil, especially if you have some good olive oil, because that's gonna, sort of waste your olive oil. You don't want to use super fancy oil for this. But for example, avocado oil is great, canola oil, you can even use peanut oil. The only thing I would keep in mind is you don't want to pick an oil that is very flavorful. So something like coconut oil, that's a no-go. Although, I don't know, I guess don't knock it till you've tried it. But in my mind, coconut flavored chili oil is probably not the flavor combination I would go with. And Marsha apple, what kind of chili flakes? So this was also a question that I forgot, I think Carol might have asked earlier. So the crushed red chili flakes obviously are the easiest to get. You can just get those at the local grocery. And if you aren't able to find powder, a shorthand would be to blend about half the amount of the crushed red pepper in your blender and make that into the fine powder and replace the fine powder layer with that. And so that's because the crushed red chili flake is going to be quite spicy. So you don't want to, have this chili oil that's going to blow your socks off. But if you are able to get your hands on it, I would get a Korean fine chili powder that you can use for kimchi. So that's a really nice fine texture and it's not super hot. So it creates a nice balance. All right, so the chili oil is one of my first recipe cards, which I'll be talking about a little bit later as well. And this is one of my all-time favorite recipes that my students like making over and over again. And the easy thing, or the really nice thing, is that once you get the hang of it, the first time might take you 15 minutes, but when you're replenishing, no more than 5 minutes max. All you're doing is heating up the oil, adding more sediment to your jar, and and frying it up. And as a bonus, it will make your kitchen smell absolutely amazing. All right. So the really cool thing about Sichuanese cooking is that a lot of the family recipes are super cumulative. So they're already building blocks, right? So basically you can master the basics and level up. So Carol, no, you do not need to refrigerate the chili oil mixture. I just keep mine at room temperature. All right, so as for our starter mission, right, we've already made the chili oil. And so the next recipe that I'll be sharing with you that will allow you to unlock really a world of dishes is what I call the drizzle on anything panda sauce. So I'll let the co-instructor recorded me take it away again. And Dave, I will come back and read your comment to everyone during the Q&A. That's really cool. Yeah, that peppers are technically a fruit.
Panda chili oil sauce while you're waiting for your dumplings to boil. Just take the small dish you prepped and combine a pinch of salt, teaspoon of sugar, a pinch or more of Sichuan peppercorn powder. This is really to taste if you like it more numbing or less. A teaspoon of sesame oil, 2 tablespoons of chili oil, and if you include more sediment, that makes it spicier. Less is less spicy. And then 2 tablespoons of light soy sauce and 1 teaspoon of Chinese black vinegar. So go ahead and give this mixture a good stir with your chopsticks. And this is 1 serving of Panda's chili oil sauce, which we will use for our dumplings today, but you can also use them in noodles, atop of eggplants, etc. Step 5, basically our last step. Plate or put in a bowl those dumplings or pot stickers and wontons and drizzle it with the panda sauce you just made and garnish with the green spring onions. And it will be oh so pretty and oh so delicious.
Great, so that is the all-purpose panda sauce, which I will be sharing also in the email following this class. So feel free to take a screenshot if you want, but I will also be sharing higher res versions of these in the email series following this class. And the cool thing is one of my students has a husband who, considers himself kind of a noob in the kitchen, but he is a sauce fiend. So she has a physical copy of basically every recipe card that I have put out, and he kind of just like shuffles them when he's hungry and wants to make something for himself. All right. So the panda sauce, as we talked about before, is really this all-purpose sauce that goes on everything. So if you're in New York, kind of a tangent, but related, you might know of a restaurant called Xi'an Famous Foods, which is amazing, very delicious. But the first time I went, I had to laugh because all of their menu items is basically the same sauce, except like, on beef noodles or pork noodles or chicken noodles. And this is the Sichuan version of that. So, if you want a more refreshing, crispy kolgan mouthfeel, you might drizzle it over cucumbers, add a little garlic, which punches up the taste. You can also drizzle it atop of veggies. This is a sauce that made me love vegetables growing up. And of course, we are going to be drizzling it today on our liang banji, or our cold tossed chicken. And if you're vegetarian or vegan, I would recommend replacing the chicken with cubed tofu. And if you have some jackfruit, maybe throw some of that in there as well for the texture, which imitates it quite well. All right, so I wasn't able to embed this video, but let me just pull up the Panda Cub Diner library. Click it open. Tossed chicken, or liang banji. This is my favorite 5-minute recipe if you are using a pre-made rotisserie chicken like we bought on Sunday. And this is also a dish that uses the panda sauce. So let's get started by gathering our tools. Cutting board, cleaver, large bowl to toss the chicken in, small bowl to pre-make your panda sauce, teaspoon, tablespoon, and chopsticks. Step 2. Gather and prepare your ingredients. So from the pantry, again, collect the necessary items for your panda sauce. That is salt, sugar, Sichuan peppercorn powder, chili oil, sesame oil, light soy sauce, and black vinegar. I would also grab the mala peanuts that you should have in your pantry. And if you don't, roasted peanuts is also a good substitution. And as for your fresh ingredients, 1/2 of that rotisserie chicken that you had popped in your fridge yesterday, and remove the meat from it and cube the meat. It doesn't have to be perfect as long as it is bite-sized. Put all of this into that large bowl that you prepped. And lastly, take 4 stems of scallions, and we are going to use the whites this time. So if you have any left over from the days before, which you might, just gather enough so that you have 4 stems. So separate the whites from the greens again, and cut those scallion whites into 1/2 inch or 1 centimeter long segments. So set this aside for now, or you can also throw it directly into the bowl that has the chicken that you just prepped. At this stage, I would actually usually go ahead and thinly slice the scallion greens that we are not using in today's dish and put them in a little Pyrex and pop them into my fridge, because I often use thinly sliced, and we will often use thinly sliced scallion greens in our future dishes. All right, step 4. We are going to make our panda sauce again, but this time times 2. So that would be 2 pinches of salt, 2 teaspoons of sugar, 2 pinches or 6 of Sichuan peppercorn powder. So that's a range 2 to 6. 4 tablespoons of chili oil, 2 teaspoons of sesame oil, 4 tablespoons of light soy sauce, and 2 teaspoons of Chinese black vinegar. So give this double duty panda sauce a good mix. Step 5. Toss everything together like a big old chicken salad, because essentially that's what it is. So cube chicken, which is already in the bowl, your scallion whites, your 1/2 cup or however many of mala peanuts, and finally drizzle the dressing or the panda sauce on it and mix, mix, mix. So you, at this point, can choose to move this mixed up chicken salad or liangbanji cold tossed chicken into a separate bowl, and this will make it all pretty for plating. But for me, I just use the same bowl. Step 6, serve. Serve with rice and any side dishes that you made. Now, happy eating, and I'll see you tomorrow. 明天见. Zen Spice Traders. Yes, I believe you can use palm sugar instead of regular white sugar. So I'm not super sure what the difference is in terms of sweetness of palm sugar. So if it's more sweet than regular white sugar, add a little less. If it's less sweet, add a little bit more so that you're getting kind of the same flavor. Dave B, you have a vegan friend that I want to send the link you're showing right now. Can you provide it? Yes, give me one moment. So the link to the class is in the chat, Dave. And for those of you who had some trouble getting into Crowdcast, I'm really sorry. So I'm using the 2.0 version. The original version let you just, like log on and watch without having to download anything. I just realized that this version is asking for you to sign up, which was not something that it did before. You should be able to actually provide your email address. Sorry, Dave, this is a little off topic. And then you can click, there's an option that says send link, and that should just send you a, you can view on your browser link. But apologies beforehand for sort of the mix up. I am going to go back and reassess kind of what tech I'm using for my group classes hereafter. All right, and Dorothy, the Tingly Peanuts, I used to buy this brand that is quite Chinese. I don't know if it has a name, but I've recently switched to the 50 Hertz Tingly Peanut because I actually like it a lot better. So the tingliness is really, I don't know how they do it. It just like soaks into the entire nut, and I absolutely love it. If I ran out, which I actually did today, I only have like a fourth of a can left. So I'm going to substitute just regular salted roasted peanuts instead. So that will still make a really delicious dish, but it won't be as tingly. So really, if you want to knock someone's socks off, use the mala peanuts from 50 Hertz. All right, so this again is You Are Welcome, Dorothy. This is the recipe card that I drew for cold tossed chicken, and it is very similar to the panda sauce recipe card, right? This is exactly the same. So as you'll start to see, a lot of the beginner Sichuanese dishes echo each other, and once you master one, it's so much easier to master another. All right, so basically for Sichuan food, right? First you toddle, then you walk, and off you go. You can start cooking up a storm. Except sometimes that's not always the case. So everything I shared up to this point, actually, I already knew, right? I grew up in a Sichuan household. All of the ingredients were available to me, yet after I left home, went to college, started setting up my own kitchen, I still did not cook for years. So this kind of went a little bit something like this. Go home, whoops, the pantry's empty, the fridge kind of has slim pickings. Oh, turns out I don't have scallions. I'm so tired, right? Should I go to the store? I have to like get dressed again, go into the car. And despite knowing all of the things, I would often not cook, and I would always be so paralyzed by choice sometimes that I wouldn't even get to making ordering takeout, right? I would just turn on Netflix, see what was on, and then by the time I actually remember to order something again, everything is closed and I have cold cereal for dinner. So you might be like this, you might not. You might have a partner like this, right? Or you might have a kid like this. And really what I want to share for the rest of the class is kind of how to help you, right? Or someone get to the point where they're joyfully cooking in their lives without having to stress over all the things that get in the way. And the main thing that I kind of want to evangelize about today is often laziness is not the issue. So as an ADHDer who had trouble in the kitchen and in a lot of areas in life, often, there's a lot of blame, especially self-blame, right, going around. And sometimes it's difficult for us to understand, why can't I just do the thing? And that brings us to the third and final mistake of this course, which is often, cooking is not just about the how-to. It's about getting rid of the things that get in the way that we don't really think about, right? Because, even if your kitchen is prepped, your pantry is stocked, that's already two things that prime you for success. Sometimes it still feels really hard to get started. And, if this person is you, you're frustrated with yourself. If this person is your spouse, right? Like it's really tough on the partner who has to pick up the cooking burden all the time. And Zen Spice Traders, Bon Appetit has a recipe to make mala peanuts. So I have not tried the recipe, so I can't recommend it off the top of my head, but I know that Bon Appetit is really reputable and I have tried some of their other recipes. So yes, I would definitely give it a try. All right. And so for, back to kind of like cooking or not cooking. So, let me know in the chat if you have ever felt this way before, right? Abolish all cooking websites where you have to scroll through an entire person's life story before getting to the actual recipe, and maybe scrolling past a couple of ads as well. Yes, I know this is a common gripe amongst a lot of my friends. And really, this makes sense if we think about when we're actually cooking dinner most of the time, which is, right, dinner time after work. And at the end of a long day, we're often very overwhelmed with decision fatigue. And especially if we're, working remotely or on the computer all the time, we really don't want to spend a bunch of, more of our mental energy on a screen. And so the last thing we want to do is burn even more brain calories deciding what to make or scrolling through all of that fluff. And for the beginner cooks out there, or the beginner attempts that have been made at cooking out there, sometimes this might also look familiar, right? Like we have skipped steps, or we lose our spot on a page when we're trying to follow a recipe. When you task switch, oh my goodness, like something is burning while you get lost online looking at an online sale for maybe 50 hertz of pepper oil, and then by the time you remember, your food is burning and it's just a mess. And so really what I want to share kind of at the tail end of this class is this aha moment that I had while I was teaching myself how to, okay, looks like we lost the video. Let me share again. Okay, so Dave B, you can still see, okay, great. So I will keep going. All right. And so my aha moment was really something that actually prompted me to start teaching, because as someone who considered herself just like a not really good cook to someone who now cooks almost every day and really loves teaching Sichuan food on Zoom, what I realized was the reason why I found cooking very difficult and also off-putting was because the act of cooking leans on a lot of executive functions, which are impaired for me as someone with ADHD. But even if you don't have ADHD, a lot of our executive functions are pretty low at the end of the day when we have basically used up a lot of our energy on other decisions, other tasks, dealing with coworkers, children, etc. And so even with the best intentions, if we don't pace ourselves or follow kind of a strategy or have basically all of this knowledge that our family taught us growing up, then we can often flame out. And so at the end of the day, it's really not about how to do X, Y, and Z. It's about creating the time and motivation to actually make, cooking, whatever cuisine you want to do, in our case, Sichuanese, a joyful part of your life. And this is really what I specialize in both my cooking classes as well as broader cooking program. And so this is what I want to share for the last part of the class going forward. And so instead of, right, like approaching everything all at once and getting super overwhelmed, what I coach my students through is really using a stepping stone approach to give our inner CEO a break and make and reframe the cooking process as something that's really meditative and therapeutic and also fun and social. So what I encourage all of us to do, or all of us to share with our friends and family to do, is to find an easier way. And usually how I intro this is asking people, right, like, do you have maybe 10 minutes a day to spare to work towards this goal? And if you do, or if you have an hour a week, right, if you want to do all of your 10 minutes in one day, then you can transform your life with the 4 stepping stones that I teach in Panda Cup Diner. So this is something that I want to walk everyone through if you're interested. And so the stepping stone approach I use to teach the very beginner of beginners how to really set themselves up for success is first, right, find your why, then order your kitchen, separate planning from doing, and also make it easy, interesting, and social. So this is something that I'll expand upon a little bit more. But really, if you want to eat delicious Sichuan food whenever you want, right, without having to prep and cook for hours, or maybe if you're like me, I want to teach my boyfriend how to make my favorite foods whenever I want to eat them. And he's really starting from not a lot of culinary knowledge. This is what I would walk him through. And so for the last part of my presentation, I will walk you through just that. All right, so I wanted to give everyone a bird's eye view of, if you liked a taste of the recipes that I shared today, there's a lot more where that came from. And I wanted to kind of like give you the logical flow of everything to help you decide if this is something that you want to come back for in the future. And so the 4-step process that I use in my Panda Cup Diner membership is first, right, week 1, I lead my students through finding their why. So, why do you want to cook? What are the reasons that you love food? And this really helps us get in the right mindset and get motivated. The second part is order, right? Ordering our space and our tools, and then followed by really an ADHD informed hack, which is separating our planning from our doing. And finally, make it in 3 different senses of the verb. So for the first, find your why. This is something that really hit home for me when I started cooking Sichuan food, because what I realized was at its core, food is simply a shared sense of belonging, which was really something that hit home for me when I was feeling very homesick alone in New York in the middle of a pandemic. And so for my students who come to me at the beginning of the program, one of the things that we do first is we just take 15 minutes, set a timer, maybe put on a soundtrack, and mind dump all of the reasons that we love food or, want to make food. So that might mean we want to make a meal for someone that we love, right? Or we want to feel really accomplished for being able to adult and take care of ourselves. Maybe it's something that we want to use to connect more closely with the culture and the heritage that we grew up with, which was certainly the case for me. And, maybe it's a really fun and bonding couples activity. And, there's also the public recognition if you make something really yummy and everyone wants your recipe. So after you kind of have this tapestry of reasons, right, why food is joyful to you, then the next 15 minutes would be to brainstorm a situation or 2 or 3, which would make you in charge of making a meal, right? So kind of putting that challenge upon yourself. So for example, Danielle and Rob were 2 of my students. For Danielle, she really wanted to be able to make some of the foods that her family made for her growing up. She's also Chinese American. For me, I had a dinner party coming up, and I needed to recipe research, create, and then actually execute. And for Rob, his wife is from Wuhan, and he wanted for their anniversary to really be able to cook dishes that she loved and she grew up with. And so that was something that he came into the course wanting to do. And the last part of really that, find your why is not only have a why, but add a win, right? Put a date to that event and add it to your calendar. So for Danielle, she was going to do it when she went home for the holidays, right? For me, I was hosting a Chinese New Year party. So that was my calendar date. And for Rob, I didn't want to share his anniversary date. So I just put Valentine's Day instead. So, at the end of the day, when we eat together, we're fed in more ways than just one, right? Every bite really recalls a sense of place, a feeling that you had with someone that you love, and no matter where we are, taste can take us home. And so I wanted to share in their own words some of the experiences that my students had. So for Danielle, food was one thing that always brought her family together. And one of the things that she got out of Panda Cud Diner was, not only was she comfortable prepping her own kitchen with ingredients that her parents used, but also as the added bonus, she was able to confidently order in Chinese those dishes at restaurant as well, because I also provide pinging and pronunciation ordering guides. And as for Rob, I'm happy to report that he got a thumbs up from his wife. So she was apparently, according to him, like she has quite high standards, but she very much enjoyed the Sichuan style tofu and cucumber salad, which in Wuhan, she and her family also made as well. So for that second stepping stone, right, after you find your why, is where I lead my students through the process of ordering, and ordering in two different senses, right? So putting your space in order, as well as, ordering literally from online or, from a store, your kitchen essentials. And so the reason behind this is often we avoid cooking not because we hate the activity itself, but because the tasks surrounding cooking can drain our motivation, which we've already talked about, right? So who wants to cook with a dull knife, dirty dishes in the sink? And for Chinese food, do I need a wok? Do I not need a wok? Do I need to buy it and then season it? And there's all of these tasks that come out of the woodwork. So really, for the second stepping stone and second week, if you're following my system, what I first recommend people to do is to order, right, the actual things that they need. And so I have this shopping guide that I can also share with everyone. So it looks like this. So you can, print it out and take it to the store if you want. And I also have a linked spreadsheet so that if you just want to, go through the ingredients and add it to your Amazon cart, and then it'll make things very easy. And Dorothy, yes, your perfect wok will also depend on whether or not you have a electric stove or a gas stove. So usually I would say if you have a gas stove, I would go with a round bottom wok because that is best for wok. But a flat bottom wok is also a really good option if you have an electric range. All right, so after you have ordered, right, and are waiting for all of those new and newfangled tools to come in, which honestly is not a lot. So, I would recommend getting a wok, a cleaver, and a spatula if you want to be very traditional about it, but you can start cooking Sichuan food with everything in your Western kitchen, right? As long as your skillet or pot is big enough to stir fry in, and if you have a chef's knife or a French knife, that will work as well. So, and the second, right, ordering is the ordering of your space or your environment. And this is also something that I was really taught by my ADHD coach, but I think this is also true for everyone. So often, environment trumps motivation, or our environment actually feeds into our motivation. So once we really have this perfect space that is tidy, it's welcoming, the counters are clear and sparkling, plus you have all of the tools and ingredients necessary, it's all the more, fun to start cooking. It's almost like you're, in your own cooking show. All right, and here's some feedback from past students. So Isabel is one of my students from the UK. So she actually lived as a Fulbright scholar in China for a year and then stayed for a couple more. And she was really trying to recreate the taste that she absolutely loved now that she's back living in a little outside of London. So for her, she really liked the detailed checklists, and the links were a plus. So in that spreadsheet that I showed everyone, there are Amazon US and Amazon UK links. And as for Howie, another one of my students, what he really liked was this easy onboarding experience where he felt like he could just jump in without having any prior knowledge of the kitchen. And also when he was able to, log in for a class, he felt like it was a very safe space where, it's okay if he messed up because everyone is still learning. All right, so now we're almost through the system. The third is really separating the planning from the doing. And this is something that now that I do it all the time feels super simple. But when I sort of learned about it, I was like, oh my gosh, like no wonder things have not been working out for me. So if this sounds familiar at all, please let me know in the chat, right? So maybe you get a burst of motivation and you have positive intentions to start cooking delicious and healthy food at home. So maybe this is the beginning of the year, right? You buy a bunch of cookbooks, or you're gifted a bunch of cookbooks by people who know your intentions to start, making 2022 or 2023 the year that you become a culinary master. But in reality, you flip open the book, right? There's so many ingredients. Which recipe do you even pick? You go to all this, you go to the store, you gather all of your ingredients. If you are really in momentum, you cook it, and then you just don't even want to eat what you cooked anymore because you're so tired. Or if you're like me, you probably bought some snacks and you ate those snacks instead, and you didn't cook, and your produce maybe goes bad in a week or so. And so, instead of cooking and whipping up this delicious meal that you envisioned in your head, you look guiltily maybe at those cookbooks gathering dust on the shelf, and you order takeout instead. So really here, the culprit is not separating the executive sort of heavy tasks of planning and deciding from the actual fun and active task of doing. And as an ADHD bonus, often what happens is, I don't want to cook something that I've made before. At least like in my head, I'm like, this is boring. I already know how to do it. And so what I used to do is like pick a random or interesting recipe that stimulated my brain when I was reading it. But then when it actually came down to doing it, things just fell apart, right? So instead of doing this whole same day approach, what I guide my students through is really, using a 3-day roadmap. So, maybe Friday, right? Pick a pre-planned meal for 2 or however many people that you will be cooking for. And I offer kind of templated meal plans in the Panda Cub Diner program. And so on Friday, really, that's when, after work, maybe shop for groceries that you need for Sunday dinner, get some ice cream, popcorn, and wine, and really treat yourself to maybe a night in and order out and have that dessert. But know that you already checked off your grocery shopping task. So Saturday, what I would recommend is using that as sort of setting your stage, in which case this means ordering and tidying your kitchen. So as someone who does not like tidying, what I do is, make an event, right? Either find a partner, a cleaning buddy, or if it's by myself, I'll put on a podcast or an audiobook that I love, or, tidy to Hamilton, the musical. And once your kitchen is sparkling clean and your tools are ready to go, leave them there, don't touch it, plan a date night out, so that you don't have to dirty any dishes and just like go out, have fun, and know that it's all ready for the next day. And so then that builds momentum for Sunday, right? Date night or family meal night, where you can send someone to go pick up a bottle of wine, get some flowers for the table. If you have a garden, maybe pick some flowers from the garden. And then you really follow this step-by-step roadmap tutorial, in video version or a written version, whichever you prefer, and end with this cozy dinner in firelight. So really magical, really delicious, not stressful, because you've separated the planning, the tasks, from the doing and the enjoying. And so, like I mentioned in the broader Panda Cub Diner program, I have this growing library of dinner roadmaps for like different numbers of people. So I have a lot that are dinner for two, because those are the ones that I mostly use for me and my boyfriend. But I've recently completed a roadmap for a 6-person dinner party. And these are just like really fun projects that I work on every month as I cook my way through the different dishes. And as a like more of a feedback, one of my students, Laura, she really liked, right, being able to see the ingredient list several days ahead of hand. She lives in an area that doesn't have access to Asian marts very easily. So she also appreciated the substitutions for, like what you can use instead of very specific Asian elements. And I also try and add dietary substitutions as well. So, if you can't eat gluten, like this is what you use. If you want a vegan or a vegetarian option, this is what you would use instead. And lastly, the crowning part of what ties it all together, right? So you have found your why, you have ordered your kitchen, you have prepped your space, and you have this roadmap to follow. The last thing to do is to actually make the dish, and also to do these 3 things that I recommend that make cooking possible for any and everyone, even if you are like a ramen king. And so that is to make it easy, make it interesting, and make it social. So these 3 things, right, they're a double-edged sword. And I'm also going to be talking about this sort of from a neurodivergent standpoint as well. So the whole easy thing, right? Obviously, if it's easy to do. But the flip side is I'm kind of bored with this, right? It's too simple, or I've done this so many times. What else is new? So when you go for new and cool, the flip side of that is, oh my gosh, it's so complicated. I didn't realize I needed to marinate the meat like a day beforehand, and I'm overwhelmed. And the last part, right? Food as a social experience. So a really nice part of that is maybe having this wonderful dinner with your friends who love your recipes and, want to get your advice on what to cook. But on the other hand, maybe that also means like, oh my gosh, you're scrambling to get ready. Your dish actually didn't turn out the way that you wanted it to be. Maybe I should cancel instead. So really, the part of the thing that section 4, step 4 of the program is really designed to help you with is finding that sweet spot between, easy, I got this, but it's also new and interesting. Plus, I have a community to share my love of food with, who is non-judgmental and super supportive. And so for, easy and new, this is where my recipe research and recipe cards and the way I present and teach recipes come in. So usually for myself, I started to delve into more complicated dishes like mapo tofu and shuizhuyu. But the dishes that I really go back to again and again are very simple, minimal steps, minimal ingredients, but very, very delicious. And what I really love is for each of the recipes that I develop, I actually print out these 5x7 recipe cards that I have just like stuck on my kitchen wall. And they're visually engaging and stimulating enough for me to appreciate them as art, right? I will not humbly say that I love my recipe cards, but at the same time, they're structured in a consistent way that I don't have to, scan around to see what I need to do first, gather all the tools, what I need to do second, right? Prep all the ingredients, which I recently learned, is mise en place in French cooking. I was like, oh, okay, so that's what I was doing. And then following it step by step. So each of my recipe cards are recipes that can be cooked in usually under 30 minutes, if not 15. So being able to shuffle through those cards and kind of like really gives me and my students a good base. And another thing to really kind of scratch are we want to try something interesting and new / make it social as well is what I really love about the program, which is every fourth Sunday of the month, I host these live cook-along masterclasses where I pick at least one, maybe two, so a main dish and sometimes a side dish from my family cooking Sichuan repertoire. And I, build out that roadmap that we talked about. I share it, and everyone who is in the membership has a free seat to these cooking classes. So they're basically following that roadmap with me. And come Sunday, we all get together and cook over Zoom. So to kind of end, here is some more feedback from past students. So Ash is another fellow ADHDer who is one of my staunchest supporters. Love her so much. And another former student took the class as a Mother's Day gift with her mom, who is really, really good at Bangla food. And so they were able to explore Sichuanese as well. And this is another student who, similar to Rob from before, he is married to a woman who is Chinese. And so he always updates me with his wife's commentary, which is very interesting and often heartening. All right. And so if you take away one thing from this class is that you can make delicious Sichuan meals whenever you want without having to stress over hunting down ingredients and tracking down overly complicated recipes. And if I've done my job well, this will translate beyond Sichuan cooking as well, right, to whatever cuisine that you are interested in. So the big question now is, how, if you're interested, can you apply this framework to your own life and create a system that makes cooking your favorite dishes a joy instead of a chore? And so, do we want to stay in overwhelmed Kev territory, or do we want to see someone we love stay in overwhelmed Kev territory? Or do we want to get equipped with the tools that move you to the I got this Jen mindset? So it is time for you, if you have stayed this long, I'm so excited, to stop wishing you can make and eat delicious meals at home and start doing it. So we do this by implementing a system that takes the guesswork out of not only how to consistently cook your favorite meals at home, but to actually enjoy that process as well. So Carol, yes, I will be sending out email with additional info. And to sort of wrap up before Q&A, I'm so excited to share that enrollment to my program, Panda Cub Diner, is open. And so I want to give you a bird's eye view of everything that you'll get immediate access to if you join. And so the 3 parts, right, is the Panda Cub Diner system and e-course, and monthly masterclasses, as well as fast action bonuses. So the system is really everything that I kind of gave a summary of today, packaged very neatly into a 30 lesson do-it-yourself at your own pace e-course. And so this is the system that helps you create your personalized, healthy, no-brainer meal plans for busy days. It will help you streamline your kitchen and life for easy and authentic Sichuan cooking. So I've actually had parents buy this for their college-age kids before. And removing the stressful tasks that sometimes come with cooking at home. And lastly, frees you to actually enjoy cooking your favorite meals at home. So you will also, as part of the membership in this e-course, get lifetime access to all of the recipes and videos and recordings of masterclasses that have been recorded up to this point and also in the future. And so the masterclasses are basically these monthly 2-hour live cooking sessions. So they're a little different from this free class today. So this class was really about giving you a taste of Sichuan cuisine as a whole, providing you with 3 starter recipes that you can use immediately. And then also, it's designed for beginner cooks as well. And so these masterclasses are really all about doing, because all of the planning has been done beforehand and sent out to you as a roadmap. So once you log in to one of my master classes, we basically spend the first 15 minutes socializing, and then we cook for an hour and a half together, right? We do all the prep together, all the cooking, we chat, I share some anecdotes, and then at the very end of class, basically this is what I'm doing instead of starting a podcast. I invite someone that I really admire and love in either the Asian food industry, so I've had chefs on before, or artists who are really involved, right, in either food art or Chinese culture, to come on and do a little mini masterclass and share their work. So that speaker series has been really fun. And here is a group photo of the last mapo tofu masterclass that I had about a month ago. All right, and the last part is for all of you who have stayed till the end. And so this is the fast action bonus. So if, and I'll make the class available, or I'll make the diner program available now if I can figure out how to share the button. But basically the fast action bonus is, if you decide that you do want to join me today for Panda Cub Diner, you will get a lifetime membership instead of paying per annum, and I'll also be shipping you my 4 favorite recipe cards. And so I'm super excited to announce that the doors are officially open for Panda Cub Diner. I actually do not know how to add my button, unfortunately. So let me actually just pop the link into the chat. Okay. So I'll pop the link into the chat so everyone has access to it. Oh yes, Anonymous, I would be so excited to send you my recipe cards. I'm actually adding 2 more to the mix. So not pictured is the mapo tofu recipe card and Koltas chicken recipe card. So those will be coming as well. So I'm so excited to share that Panda Cub Diner is open for registration, and really today is kind of, this year is the first year that I'm doing this membership. So starting from next year, the membership will be per annum. So it'll be $25 a month or $297 a year. But for this particular class, I'm offering the membership for life for the price of just 1 year. So if you click on the link that I shared in the chat, and I'll also be sharing this in a follow-up email as well, you can kind of see all of the things that the diner comes with, which includes the Panda Cub Diner system, the Done For You meal plan library, lifetime access to all of my lessons, and also live master classes. So the total value is basically, oh, Gregory Lund, yes, you can absolutely share the membership with your kids. So I've had families buy a membership and just share the password, across 3 different computers. And so that's absolutely fine. I actually prefer it this way. So I think in my mind, I would love to be able to also have someone pass this membership down to their grandchildren, and then have them, but okay, so, well, this is me. I am planning to pass this down to my grandchildren. Yeah, so I won't, I'm a little over time, so I won't go over all of the things, but the link is in the chat. I'll share it again. And Really, to end, Panda Cup Diner began as a way for me to teach myself how to make my family's food, and it's really grown into something so much more than just a cooking class. So it's become a roadmap, for me and some of my students to break that cycle of dependence we as millennials felt like we had on takeout and meal kits, and then really build a lifestyle that frees us to relish the foods that we actually love to eat. Oh, thank you, Greg. I'm so excited to welcome you on board. My assistant will also be reaching out to get your address so that we can ship you your recipe cards. Yes, and to wrap, really, this is a love letter to my mama, my baba, yes, my journey, my yaya who is no longer with us, and to really, save and savor all of those experiences that taught me to take joy in Sichuanese cooking. So these are the dishes and stories I really want to pass on to my own children, and I'm so excited to share it with you. So, okay, so I won't play this video here, but you will see if you join me for my master classes that I have a gray cat that loves to camera hog. So he will be joining us for class as well. Well, maybe I will play the video.
Okay. There may be some chicken in your future. Ooh, ooh. Oh. But not right now. I gotta film first.
Right. And the last piece of feedback that I wanted to share is from my student Peter, whose wife is from Xi'an, but half of her family is from Chongqing, which is actually the other part of Sichuanese cuisine originator. And so apparently the Chongqing side approved, which is a really good thumbs up for me. So again, the doors are officially open. The link is in the chat. And if you're watching this replay, the link will also be in your email. And the program has a 1-year money back guarantee. And I really wanted this for you because, I know that this is an investment, right? Like as a business owner, I have created something that I really think is worth your time and worth your money, but I also want that to be a investment that you're happy and comfortable and confident in making if you think that this is something for you. So you have 1 year of joining the program, and again you'll get it for life, so no matter what, there won't be any renewals on the horizon. But right, if you go through all the recipes and it turns out that you really didn't get what you were looking for, completely understand, and I will happily give you my money back. I will happily give you your money back, just because I'm so confident and in love with this experience, and I'm so excited to share it with you. So for the rest of class, this timer here is mostly for me to scroll back through the chat and see if you had any questions.